So in Cars 1, Lightning McQueen was the hotshot young rookie. He could do no wrong. He was like Superman when he was on the racetrack. A lot of time has passed, and I think, like all of us realize, one day we wake up and we're middle-aged and we are no longer as young as we were. We can no longer do the things we used to be able to do, and he realizes he's no longer the hotshot young rookie. There's an entire new generation of brand new racers that can do things faster than him. They train different than him. They're an entire different generation. He doesn't understand how they do it, and they're leaving him in the dust. And if he doesn't figure out how to adapt, the racing career, the entire racing world is going to leave him in the dust. Trainer is Cruz Ramirez. She's the best trainer, a little bit of a racer herself on the simulator. She's very good on equipment, but she trains people by finding your soul, right? She looks right into you and will decide what it is you need specifically. So she would train person A differently from person B. And she zeroes in right away on McQueen's age. She zeroes in right away on the fact that McQueen's generation is starting to slip. And she, unfortunately for him, she treats him like he's old. And that's the last thing he wants to hear. The last thing he wants to be is reminded how old he is compared to the racers that are out there right now. And she digs right in. Kind of tough love with a hug. Armie Hammer, wow, he was a hoot. That guy brings a lot of energy. Armie always had this little thing where he would back off the microphone and get ready to say some lines. He might box in place for do a little dance, and he'd pop up to the microphone and just say his lines. And again, with Armie, it was very improvisational. We would cover what's on the page, and then he would tell me, "Oh, I got an idea. Can I try this? Can I try this?" And the answer is always yes. When Armie says, "Can I try this?" So he would throw out a new line, and he would say that a couple of times, and I'd throw him back at a variation of that. And so we had a good time. I think the moment I met Armie, I felt like we were like good friends that have always known each other. He's a very warm guy, very intense, very intense. I think he was the absolute perfect person for Jackson Storm, because he can put a smile on his face, put his arm around you, say words that sound like they should be a compliment, but at the same time you realize this isn't a compliment. We were thinking about who to play the part of Cruz. One of the things we were looking for was a comedian, because we wanted her to be funny. And a lot of times it's easier to get a comedian to act than it is to get an actor to be funny. I actually think the comedian part of it is probably the harder of the two. And so we were looking at comedians, and we came across Cristela. And it was as if you had a bunch of people wearing gray sweaters, and all of a sudden somebody was wearing a fluorescent orange sweater, and that's what her voice sounded like. It really jumped out. It completely jumped out. She was hilarious. We went to her comedy routine. She's hilarious. And then on stage, she started telling a story about her family, and she stopped telling jokes, and she actually dialed it down and told a real emotional story. And that's when we realized this is the person. Not only is she hilarious, but there's a lot going on under there, and really emotional. And so that's when we knew we found the right voice. Cars fans will enjoy seeing all their characters, all their beloved characters. They're all back. They're better than ever. And fans of movies and Pixar movies will enjoy where we go with McQueen's story. I mean, we are really pushing him against a wall, and he's going to have to make some tough choices on who he was and who he needs to be. And fans of racing, I think, are just going to love all the racing we throw on the screen. And it's not all the kind of racing you might think. We have dirt racing, we have beach racing, inspired by the old Daytona beach track. We've got big races, small races. It's got it all. I got my start at Pixar as a story assistant on the Cars 1. I was hired to, I always had an art background, and I was hired to help the story artists actually get their work done. So they would draw the important parts of the picture, the parts that are changing for their storyboards, and I would come in and just fill in the background and anything that helped them stay on schedule. But while I was there, I was able to work very closely with John Lasseter and the late Joe Ranft. Both of those guys are I consider great mentors of mine. So I got to know John, and I got to know the franchise pretty well, and stayed on through Cars 1, worked on, again with John, on Cars 2. And now I'm fortunate enough and honored to be here directing Cars 3.